Hi guys, welcome back to So Millennial Reactions by Trick, aka me, Patrick. Today we're going to be doing a review and a kind of summary of The Crown Season 6 Part 1. I must confess, I filmed this video once already. I filmed it the Friday night it came out, but after rewatching it, I realized I missed a lot of things, and I kind of wanted to be more in depth because I had a lot more thoughts after sitting with the episodes for a little bit more. So this time I have notes. They're 3 pages, and I'm warning you that the first 3 episodes are like a page and a half, and the rest is the fourth episode because there's a lot of things to talk about in the fourth episode. So this is just as a warning. This is a spoiler review. So if you haven't watch the episodes first, then come on back and watch this. Or if you are a casual fan of The Crown, because it's inspired by true events, and you kind of know what's going to happen, maybe watch this and hear my, interpretation of the events and what happened. And if you're interested, maybe you'll go watch it. Um, One other thing I wanted to mention is that I do have my second channel rebranded. It's now called The Men's uh, Bible to All Things Luxury. It used to be called The Men's Fashion Slayer, but I rebranded it to The Men's Bible for All Things Fashion. But I wanted to point out that it's also kind of unisex too, because I still have my old videos from the prior channel on that channel, so you could go back and watch those, like unboxings, jewelry unboxing, bags unboxings, like bags I think that are unisex. Um, so I think women could appreciate those videos too. I don't want to say that it's all exclusive to men, um, or gay men, or bi, or straight. I try to be inclusive to everyone. So with that said, let's start my review of The Crown Season 6 Part 1. Initial thoughts. I'll be honest, Season 5 was kind of a snooze. I find it hard to replace Claire Foy and Olivia Colman with, I can never pronounce her name right, Imelda Stanton from Harry Potter. I just, I don't know. She plays the queen in such a like weird way that Olivia and Claire, I thought, did a much better job. Claire, I think, did the best job. That was her breakout role. I became like a huge Claire Foy fan after watching the first season. I think she's a remarkable actress, and season 2 is actually my favorite season of The Crown. And I would actually now say that season 6, part 1 is now my second favorite season because these episodes are so good, especially 3 and 4. Do I think that 4 episodes were enough to, I don't want to say wrap up this storyline, because this was a woman who was highly praised, who did a lot of charity, who was very little by the word, and to say that, these episodes were to wrap up her storyline is kind of insensitive, I think. So I'll just say these episodes are to capture the remaining, I think it's either 6 or 8 weeks of her life, and the events that happened then. Um, the first thing I will say that is that Peter Morgan took some civil liberties with this. Some scenes I found hard to believe. Um, it just I've watched a lot of documentaries on Princess Diana. I know a lot about it. It was a while ago, so my memory is not like currently like up to date on exactly what happened in '97. I was in middle school, but I watched documentaries like when I was in my late 20s about her life and her story. Um, but there were certain scenes that I just didn't find believable, which I'll mention when I'll go through the episodes. So I'm kind of wondering why Peter went in that direction because it was something so serious. Like these episodes were supposed to be really serious about, the final moments of her life. And I know it just kind of bothered me that some scenes I just didn't find believable. Sorry, I'm anal and I'm like checking this stuff off. Like in my real day job, I run a whole team, so I constantly have lists of things to do, and I'm always like making sure I get everything done. The second thing I wanted to say is I really felt that Netflix didn't really promote this that much. When I woke up Friday morning and I opened Netflix, usually when a new season added, especially an Emmy award winning show, it's like the front line, the spotlight on the top of Netflix. And to my surprise, it wasn't. It was, they were promoting the Mark Wahlberg movie. I think it's called Soul Survivor. I actually just watched it a couple hours ago, and it was actually very good. Um, Side note, I thought that was very interesting that these um, Afghanistan war movies have been coming out recently because last month, I think it was last month, um, Amazon Prime released Guy Ritchie's The Covenant with Jake Gyllenhaal, which I thought was an excellent movie also. I like spy, like government, like war kind of movies. More spy, like espionage stuff and like assassins and like John Wick and like stuff like that. But I also like do enjoy like true story or inspired by real events like war stories because I think it gives us more of an insight because, you know, during the times post 9/11, the war was going on, and I feel a lot of people were a little bit numb to it and didn't really realize what our troops were doing to protect our lives, basically. That's why when you always see a veteran, you always say, thank you for your service because they do a lot of stuff that you probably don't know about. So, sorry, that was a side tangent. Going back to the ground. Um, yeah, so I was surprised that Netflix didn't even promote it that well. And when I went to new releases, I had to like scroll like 7 or 8 shows for it to show up, and it said, new season, but it wasn't really promoted. Like, they have some of the promotional pictures um, that I thought were really beautiful. It was the picture of her on the yacht on the diving board, which I think is one of the most beautiful pictures of her. And I also love that earlier this year that SZA recreated that picture for the her album cover. And it was in all the lyric videos for her songs, and it had like kind of like motion in it. And I made it my wallpaper on my iPad and on my iPhone because I love the picture so much. Um, so yeah, I found it weird that, you know, since they're covering, you know, one of the most pivotal moments in the royal family, even though she was technically divorced from the royal family, which we'll talk about later, um, that it wasn't promoted as much. Maybe because the ratings weren't as good for season 5, but that's to be expected. You guys screwed it up. It wasn't good. Like, how can you compare that season to season 4 with Olivia Colman and Gillian Anderson as Margaret Thatcher? That season was killer. And I didn't really. even enjoy. Like season 3 was okay when Olivia Colman joined. It was alright, but season 4 when Gillian Anderson joined the cast as Margaret Thatcher, that was an epic season. I loved that season. So that would be my third favorite probably. So season 2, season 6 part 1, and then season 4, right? Yeah, 4. So yeah. Um so the opening. Oh, so the first episode, forgot to mention, um, is called Persona non grata, which basically means like an unwanted person. And I took that in two interpretations. One, the rejection of Dodie's current fiance and how he basically screwed her over and decided to go after Diana instead of marry his fiance, or it had to deal with Camilla because this episode features her 50th birthday where the queen refuses to attend. So that's where I'm trying to figure out. Um, I understand why they named the episode Persona non grata, but I want it's not clear what it's directed towards. It could be directed toward multiple things, more than one thing, but I'm wondering also if it's directed just to one thing. Um, so the opening scene is a guy walking his dog, and you see the Mercedes flying by, and you hear the accident, and then it cuts back and it cuts to a scene of Diana and was it Harry? No, sorry, William in the car singing as they were on their way to visit with my mic, um, the Prime Minister's house because they had a get together, which I can't remember. I think the Queen was like upset about it, but she was kind of shocked that the Prime Minister was interacting with Diana since she was officially divorced from the family. Um, Also, this episode highly emphasized Diana interacting her with her kids and showing how much she loved William and Harry. Um, I've watched, sorry, these 4 episodes made me very emotional. Um, Elizabeth Debicki said in an interview that those scenes were the hardest to film because she knew in her head that she was filming the last moment that Diana would have with her children. And they also talked about the scenes where the paparazzi were chasing her and taking, when she's getting in the car, and she explained how she, like, basically really immersed into the role and tried to feel how she felt. But when it came time to shooting, she said it actually felt like it was happening to her, which makes for a great scene because you're getting, like a visceral reaction of like this actor's normal response to, 20 people with cameras taking your picture. Um, so I thought that was very interesting. Elizabeth Debicki is very well spoken, and I am like a really big fan of her now. A lot of people say that Emma Corwin played a better Diana than her because like she they say that um her accent sounded more like her, but in terms of, I don't know about that because I don't have time to compare all three of their accents. But in terms of acting, I think Elizabeth did a much better job, in my opinion. So I covered, yeah, the paparazzi. This is all the also showcased the paparazzi constantly chasing her. Um, she's in Saint Tropez, I think, on a yacht, and there's photographers everywhere, and they just won't leave her alone. And I kind of think about why they always pursued her. And I'll talk about this later, but they say that she was always involved in drama and stuff. So maybe you know the divorce from the royal family in marriage to her other, going out with Dodie, in marriage to other things she was doing, like the charity work. Um, Maybe that's why they were always, constantly following her. So Diana brings her kids to uh, Mohammed Al Fayed's yacht in Saint Tropez. They kind of have like an introduction, and that's when Mohammed was like convinced that he wanted Dodi to marry Diana. And his the way the show makes it seem is that he wanted Dodi to marry Diana to increase the power of the family, even though he already owned Harrods and he owns the Ritz Carlton in Paris. Um, he also lived to 93, by the way. I looked that up because I wondered how. I looked up. I wanted to know when he passed away. He lived to 92 or 93, I think, which I found was interesting. Dodi Muhammad is pressuring Dodi to pursue Diana and kind of get rid of his fiance because he felt that she was below the family and not worthy to be married into the family, which is kind of similar because um, isn't that the way they kind of felt on the United Kingdom's royalty side about um, Harry and Meghan? Or was it even William and Kate too? Because Kate was considered a commoner, right? Or I could be wrong. I forget. Like, I try to block out all that stuff because it's so like all over the place, and the press always screws it up, and like you kind of never know what to believe. And the special with Harry, like I found I found some parts that I think that he was being honest, and I found some other parts that I feel like that were a little bit fabricated. But he has to protect his privacy and stuff like that, so I get it. So I already talked about the persona non grata, either pertaining to Camilla or Dodie's fiance. I forget her name, but she was like a fashion editor in LA or something like that, or something along, or model, something along those lines. She was a very pretty actress who played her. But the scene with the fact that they put her on other yacht, not with Diana and Dodie, and like Dodie goes in to like calm her down, and they end up sleeping together. And I think he just did that as a manipulative tactic, just to like shut her up and like make her feel calm. But I don't think the fiance and Diana ever had um, a scene together. For obvious reasons. I don't think they probably ever met. Maybe. The last thing. Okay, so the last thing is that Charles goes to the his mother, the Queen, and asks her to attend Camilla's 50th birthday party, um, which the Queen refuses and says she has other plans. And uh, Charles even says, well, you can rearrange this, you can rearrange that, and make it work. And she's like, no, like, these plans are set, far in advance, and, messing with them now would be um, wrong. And, I think that was her way of giving a big fuck you to Charles because she doesn't accept Camilla into the family, given what happened between her, Charles, and Diana, and how Diana referred to Camilla as the third person in the marriage, which I truly believe. Charles really fucked up in that way and screwed her over. I'm not saying that Diana was perfect, but in a marriage, there's usually two people. Not, a lot of men have people on the side, but when you're a prince and you marry someone and make them a princess, you think you would show them a little bit more respect, even though if they were having problems in their marriage. Alright, so that's episode one. Okay, it's already 20 minutes. My first video was like 16 minutes, so I definitely missed a lot of stuff. Um, Episode two was entitled Two Photographs. Um, this I think was the weakest episode of the season. It basically dealt with two photographers, and they're how, and I don't even want to call them photographers. They're paparazzi. They're paid to get candid shots of people to put in the press. To me, that's paparazzi. You're selling pictures for money. Like a photographer to me is like, someone who takes like professional photos and like, for like modeling campaigns and stuff like that, or for art, not to, catch two people kissing on a yacht. That's paparazzi, sorry. And, when I was watching this, I was thinking, if, how in Dubai now it's illegal to take, a cele- I, I, I don't know if it's for everyone, but I know for particular and for celebrities, um, like paparazzi are not allowed to take pictures of celebrities in Dubai. And I wish that existed in 1997 because I felt like Diana would have found safe haven there to get away from everything, and that maybe would have changed something. I don't know, that just crossed my mind because I remember that's why Lindsay Lohan moved there to get, because wherever she went, the paparazzi was always chasing her, trying to get her picture or trying to catch her doing something. And that's why, she lives in Dubai. I think more countries should adopt that law. I'll admit I looked at like celebrity photos in my 20s, but like now I don't look at any of their eggs anymore. I can really care less. I'll see, random pictures sometimes. Like the most popular pictures and videos right now are of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, which I love because I'm a Swiftie, so I like their relationship. Um, to make my point about the paparazzi, so Mohammed hires an Italian photographer to go to Saint Tropez to get candid photos of Diana and Dodie kissing and, being cuddly with each other. And like the next day, they were printed in all the tabloids, including the British one, and the Queen took note of that and wasn't really. I don't know. I don't know if she didn't like it or was just um, indifferent about it. Yeah, I wrote that she had a very reserved face when she was reacting to the pictures. The second photographer, which I read was is fictional. It's not part of real events. Um, he was depicted taking pictures of Charles with Prince William and Harry, which I don't know why that had to be in the episode, to be honest with you. I thought that was a waste of airtime. And then the last thing at the end of the episode is Diana traveling to Bosnia um, to support um, their mission to, you know, get rid of all the landmines in Bosnia from the war. And there's a scene with her with like a face covering and like stuff on while she's walking because apparently there are like hundreds and hundreds of landmines still in Bosnia that are, way under the dirt and that can still go off and are still, um, keep getting pet on me, and are still hurting people. I wish they had the finances to, hire a crew of people with, metal detectors to, uh, find them and get rid of them. I would think a metal detector would find a landmine, right? They're made out of metal, right? I'm not sure. Sorry. But yeah, it's sad that that exists in Bosnia. But it just, they did, I think they did that to depict her, some of the charity work, because I think, she did a lot more charity work than that they didn't show in the show, which I found a little interesting. I would, this episode, I thought it was a waste spending most of the time on the photographers, where I would have made that maybe a quarter of the episode, and then the rest of the 75% I would have showed, Diana's various charity work. But then the timeline would be screwed up, so, how do you do that? I don't know. I don't produce television. um, Alright, so now the last two episodes, which are the two big ones. Episode 3 is entitled Dis-moi Oi, which means tell me yes. Um, it's basically when you give a ring, it's kind of like an engagement ring. And dis-moi oi is French. Basically means say yes to me, blah blah. Because Diana spots a ring that's that type of ring, which I'll cover in a minute. Sorry, I need to readjust. I finally had a procedure on my back on Friday, so I'm still recovering from it. But I'm feeling better. If my jacket would sit straight, okay. All right. So this episode deals with the things that happened at the end of August 1997. It leads up to the accident. Um, I thought the beginning of the episode was interesting because it was a scene of Diana on the yacht talking to her therapist, and they were talking about how they are working on her trying to, absolve from being in drama because it just causes chaos in her life. And the therapist didn't want it to continue because she felt that Diana at some point would feel that it would become normal and a part of her life. And it's hard to come back for that. So it's better to work on that now and get that chaos and drama out of your life and live a more quiet and peaceful life with your children, for the sake of your mental health. So I thought that was um, a really good scene. And they also said that the situation with Dodie wasn't a good thing. A therapist was kind of get away from him, you shouldn't be involved with him. Um, they take a trip to Monte Carlo, which is a part of Monaco. Well, yeah. Why did I say Monaco? Monaco. I know my geography. I'm sorry. I don't know why. Sorry, it's midnight on Sunday and I have to get up tomorrow. That's why I'm filming this so late. Yeah, so they take a trip to Monte Carlo, which is part of Monaco. They're enjoying each other's company, they're having ice cream, and then eventually a lot of people start recognizing them and they get bombarded and they seek refuge in a jewelry store while their bodyguard is trying to, Dodie's bodyguard, um, is trying to figure out what to do, and that's when she sees the ring, and that's when Dodie gets the idea to get that for her, um, as an engagement ring since Mohammed was pressuring him to propose to her. Um, I wanted to say something else about this. Oh, uh, you know, not diverting from the show from the minute, from the things that the documentaries I've seen, I believe that when Diana divorced Charles, the royal family did offer her security, but she declined and said that she would provide her own security. But in the show, they never depicted her with security ever. The only security I saw was Dodie's bodyguard. So I'm kind of wondering if she actually did have security in 1997, because considering how popular she was, I think she would. But I'm assuming when she was with her sons, they had security because they're princes, and I don't think the palace would allow them to go out with their mother without security. In my opinion, I don't know if that's true or not. That's just my thoughts about it. Um, yeah. So while they're in the jewelry store, Diana sees the ring, and that's when Dodie gets the idea to get it for her. Um, I actually fact checked this scene, and he got. Did I write the name of the store? I wrote it somewhere else, but apparently it was an 11,000 euro, and they called it a budget engagement ring, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like this guy's family is worth like a gazillion dollars, and he buys her a 11,000 euro ring. Not that that's important. That what happened to the both of them is important. The amount of money in the ring is insignificant. I just thought it was an interesting fact. So I feel that during this time, Diana um, felt like that um, her relationship with Dodie um, wasn't going to be um, sustainable. So I think she got that from her, after listening to her therapist. Sorry, I need to put a little lip oil on. My lips are getting chapped. But yeah, she just realized that she didn't want that chaos anymore in her life. So, can you blame her? Yeah, she wanted to focus on her boys and all the charity that she was doing. That was the main focus before she met Dodie. Um, yeah, she basically wanted to start over and end her association with the monarchy. Um, and I this is where I wrote the therapist worried that this would become of her part of her normal life, and she was trying to help her achieve a more balanced life. I forget if I said that or not, but I'll say it again. Um, my my feelings about Muhammad. I don't know how he acted in real life, but I think the show really depicts him as a piece of crap. He was willing to do anything and everything to have his son propose to Diana. I think at one point he even promised him half of the fortune if he closed the deal. And to say close the deal, I think is so vulgar. You don't say that when you want to marry someone. You marry someone because you love them and you want to spend your life with them, not to close a deal and make your family more powerful. Yeah, he promised his son half of the business if he closed the deal. Um, and I said that obviously backfired because look what happened to Dodie. And I'm sure he thought for the rest of his life that if he didn't push that relationship, that the accident wouldn't have happened. Just saying. Oh, so the next point I wanted to bring up in this episode is that Dodi was frustrated about all the negative press the British was giving to him, and he felt very strongly it was because of his race and that he wasn't white. And I found it very interesting for Peter Morgan to insert a little bit of racism into these 4 episodes that were mainly supposed to deal with Diana and Dodie's passing. So for him to put in that scene where he brings up, the feeling that the reason why he's getting negative press from the British is because he's um, not white and he's Middle Eastern. So I thought that was um, very interesting. Yeah, I didn't expect him to call out the racism in the British press, but unfortunately, that happens in a lot of country where the people are predominantly white. Unfortunately, um, so after Monte Carlo, Diana wants to go back to England to be with her children, but Dodie convinces her, insists that they take the Harris jet to Paris. And this is the one scene I didn't like. The reason why Dodie wanted to go to Paris is that the store where he wanted to get that ring for her didn't have it, but they had it in the Paris store. So he wanted to make a pit stop in Paris to get that ring first and then go back to England. So they kind of made it seem like if he didn't like go after that ring, the accident might have not happened. But saw then I thought of it in a bigger picture, in a bigger sense, that they're basically saying that if Mohammed didn't push this engagement, it wouldn't have happened either. I think that's probably the bigger picture that Peter Morgan was going for. But I thought that, the lame excuse that they had to stop in Paris with their ring was inconsistent and probably not true to real life. Yeah, the store that the ring was from is called Reposi. I've been to Paris and I've never heard of it, so it's probably some jewelry chain in Europe. Yeah, and Diana even insisted that she would fly commercial back to England, and Dodie protested it because I guess he felt that she would be unsafe on a commercial flight. Yeah, it rubbed me the wrong way because, like I just said, if they didn't go after the ring, the Paris accident maybe wouldn't have happened. But like I just realized, maybe Peter Morgan was going for the fact that if he didn't even propose in the first place, that it wouldn't have happened. Um, Side note that there are a couple scenes where Diana is calling her sons, and she's unable to get a hold of him. And there's a scene where Mohammed wants them to stop at his house just to show her where she could possibly live if she married Dodie and she was pissed because she missed her call with her sons because that's like the most important thing to her. And I think I said Elizabeth Debicki said those were the hardest scenes to film, like her reaction when she found out that she couldn't speak to her sons. She tried to make that as real as possible, which I thought was a very smart move by Elizabeth. Yeah, that like her children were like with her father doing other things, like when she would call. Um, and then I also read that some people felt that it was emotionally manipulative for the show to pick. This is I reworded it a little bit. Um, some people felt that this was emotionally manipulative to depict this to the audience, like Diana not being able to get a hold of her sons, knowing that these are going to be the last times she was ever going to be able to speak to her sons. Like it was, but I kind of semi agree that it was emotionally manipulative and a little too raw to expose to the audience. I feel that's just my opinion. I can see maybe like one scene of them doing it, but like doing it a couple times. Um, and I understand why probably they did it a couple times because it did happen multiple times. But for the sake of, her memory, I don't think they should have, you know, included like every phone call basically. Yeah, so I already said that Dodie's father insisted they visit Villa Windsor, like where they could possibly live. I think that this set off major red flags for Diana. I when the proposal scene happened, I knew she was gonna say no. Um, I said, Diana becomes furious because she missed the call with her sons. So in lieu of that, she starts wrapping her birthday present for Harry, which comes back in for the fourth episode, and that scene made me tear up, and I'll get to that when I go over the fourth episode. Yep, and I already said Elizabeth to Becky said that was really hard to film. So later, while they're out there at Carlton, Dodie does propose to her. She shoots him down, and she kind of figured that his father was pressuring him, and she kind of insisted that he calls his father and says, that he's not gonna do what he says, even if he cuts him off. So then there's a scene where Dodie calls his father and starts telling him something, and right when he starts like telling him that he's not going to do anything, and I don't care if you cut me off, he secretly hangs up the phone to make Diana think that he's actually talking to him. When uh she's not. But we later find out that Diana knew that he had done that. I don't know how she knew that he didn't do that. I'm guessing because I think she thought that he didn't have the balls to do that, which I kind of agree with her. Um, so then Dodie asks Diana if she wants to stay at the Ritz Carlton or go back to his apartment, and she says that she wants to go back to his apartment, even though Dodie's bodyguard was warning them that there's, massive paparazzi outside, and it could be an issue. Um, but Diana insists on going anyway, and I think about that, like, why was she so eager to go back to his apartment when they just could have stayed at the Ritz Carlton? I guess we'll never know the answer to that question. Yeah, they even tried decoy car, but the Paps will find them. Now I want to talk about Dodie's driver. So the show kind of depicted this a little bit, but they didn't go really into it, and I think it was maybe because of legal reasons. Because it was reported that Dodie's driver wasn't supposed to be driving, that there are no plans for him to drive him that night, and he had been drinking the whole afternoon. And according to reports, his blood alcohol level was 3 times legal limit. So I'm guessing that contributed to the crash. Because I always thought, like, I know they were speeding and going into the tunnel, but yeah, I was wondering how he lost control of the car. Um, but, if your blood alcohol level is 3 times the legal limit, you don't have your bearings correctly and you're bound to make a mistake, unfortunately. And it took 2 people's lives because the only person that survived was the bodyguard. Um, and I wrote, like, how could such a careless mistake be made when you're dealing with a really rich family? I'm talking about Dodie's family and also a princess. Like, how could they be so careless? You think the bodyguard would have screened the driver to make sure he was okay to drive before departing the Ritz. But that did not happen. So the episode concludes with the moments leading up to the crash and the boys getting ready for bed, thinking that they were going to see their mother the next day, which was very, very sad. All right, so we're on to the last episode of part one. Um, it's correctly titled Aftermath because it is the aftermath of the accident. The episode starts on August 31st, 1997, just after midnight. News had just broken that Princess Diana was seriously hurt in a car crash in Paris, and Dodi died on impact. Um, I think the driver also died on impact, and the only survivor was the bodyguard Trevor, like I mentioned before. Um, so the initial reports that came out around after midnight was that Diana had a concussion and a broken arm, which wasn't the case. Um, she actually was suffering from severe internal bleeding, and since they were in a bulletproof Mercedes, and I didn't know this until I read it, I looked it up. It took over an hour for paramedics to get her out of the car. So having, an internal bleeding and stuff like that is really serious, and it has to be corrected by a surgeon in a hospital, like, very quickly. So the fact that she had to lay there for a little over an hour so they could just pull her out of the car, um, probably made her injuries a lot worse and a lot harder to save her. Because I'm guessing the windows were bulletproof, so you couldn't, have that thing that they can just smash the window to, like, pull someone out of the car, use the jaws of life. I don't know if that works on a bulletproof car. And I actually didn't even know that the car was bulletproof until I looked it up. So the episode begins with a call to the castle where they learn that Diana was in an accident. So they wake up the royal family, which is Elizabeth, Charles, and oh my god, why did I forget? Why did I forget Queen Elizabeth's husband's name? I know it. I'll remember it later. Uh, and yeah, and when the guy tells them the news, Charles points out that they're already reporting it on the news. Then they learn just before 4 a.m. that she unfortunately passed from internal injuries, and they showed a scene of the workers in the Parisian hospital mourning her death. One thing I thought was interesting when they announced the accident, there are a couple things. The scene where they announce the accident, the scene where the doctor informs everyone of her passing, and when they told the royal family of her passing, and I believe the scene where they tell the boys, they decided to cut out all the audio and just play the score. Um, I thought that was an excellent move by Peter Morgan because I think it was showing a sign of respect, and we all know what happened, so we don't need to, listen to it on a show. That part could be silenced out and just play the music, and we see there obviously, there are visual reactions, but we don't, hear them saying it. But yeah, they did it in the scene where they first told the royal family about the accident, the scene where the surgeon comes out of the hospital, the Parisian hospital, and tells the staff and I guess the reps from uh, uh, UK UK embassy that were there. That was silent, and I I'm pretty sure the scene with uh, Prince Harry and William, they I don't think they cut out the first part, but the second part they definitely cut out. Yeah, I thought that was respectful of Peter Morgan. Yeah, I just said it didn't need to be verbalized on the show. Um, and one thing I thought was interesting, they did play the audio of Charles leaving after finding out about Diana's passing. And one thing I noted is that neither the Queen or his father consoled him at all. They just kind of sat there and looked at him, which to me is kind of savage. Because even though they're divorced, she's still the mother of her grandchildren. So why can't you show a little empathy? When it came to telling the boys, the show made the right move to cut the scenes short. They weren't long at all. Basically, Charles says that when he wakes William up, that you're gonna have to be brave, and the rest of the conversation is muted. And they didn't show the boys' full reactions, which I think was very respectful, considering that they're still alive, and I don't think not that they watch it, but I don't think they want to see actors depicting the reaction to their mother's death. I think that would be a little insensitive. But there are other scenes with them that pull at the heartstrings, which I'll mention in a minute. The scene following that I thought was very distasteful. Charles asked to use the royal plane to fly Diana's body from Paris to the UK, and the Queen questioned why does she have to do that? She's not part of this family. She's divorced. And Charles kind of makes a snarky comment and says, what do you want us to do? Transport her back in a Harris wagon? And to that point, the Queen finally agreed. Oh, he made the point. Should we bring her back in a Herod's van when she's literally the mother of the future King of England? Which I think is a really good point. Yeah, so that changed her mind, but I found the scene very off-putting, to be honest with you. Um, they also were having they were also going to church that day because I think it happened on a Saturday night, right? So it would have been Sunday when I could be wrong, but I think it was Sunday. Um, and the Queen said that they didn't want any mention of Diana's passing at the service, which very much upset Charles. So then Charles flies to Paris to bring Diana's body home. Um, they show him going to the morgue and seeing her body. Um, and they were very respectful in the fact that they didn't show Elizabeth Debicki um, deceased. They did show Dodi deceased, like when Muhammad went to the morgue to identify his son. They did show his body, but when they did it for Diana, they didn't do that, which, again, I think that was the right thing to do. Yeah, I have to say, the show didn't make that many. They made some mistakes, I think, with this, but I didn't think they made like really big mistakes depicting, this tragedy basically. And then, they're obviously traveling out of a FBO airport because, they fly private. Um, and while Charles, I don't know if Charles was in the hearse with Diana, but the people in Paris were on the streets weeping and clapping for her, which just showed her influence on the world, which I thought was a pretty scene. And while they're on the plane, they show Diana like as a ghost. That was another scene I had a problem with because there's also another scene with her and the Queen, with her as a ghost. I thought that was a little bit too morbid to put in the show. Um, I would have rather them, oops, I would have rather them not show her, but have Charles sitting there, hearing her voice talk to him, and communicate that way in lieu of having her physically there talking to him. I think just having her voice in his head saying whatever would have sufficed. I just found it too morbid. But he says to her, Paris, one of the busiest cities in the world, and you brought it to a standstill. I thought that was a powerful quote. Um, yeah, like I mentioned, I thought Diana's ghost was weird, especially when she said it will be easier for everyone when I'm gone. And Charles responds, no, it won't, which he was absolutely right. Then we cut to one of the most frustrating scenes. The Queen doesn't want Diana to have a state funeral because she's technically no longer part of the royal family. Which I don't get because she is or was the mother, or no, she is the mother of the future King of England. Um, and given her impact on the world, even though the Queen and her didn't get along famously, the right thing to do would to give her a state funeral, which they end up doing, obviously. So I pulled two quotes from that scene that I thought were important. Um, Charles says to the Queen, "They all expect us to show grief and compassion, and for you to be mother to the nation." And she basically responds that she doesn't appreciate him telling her when to be told when and how to grieve, which I thought was heartless. And then Prince Philip, that's her husband, Prince Philip adds that, and I called it a cruel jab at his son when he said, particularly by the person who caused her the most pain. How did Diana cause Queen Elizabeth the most pain in her life? In the first season, you see Claire Voice say that, she wouldn't have chose this life to be in the spotlight. She even says that, she wished that Princess Margaret was the queen at some point. She never really wanted the role, but I guess she kind of, grew into it. Then meanwhile, William is listening to the whole conversation, and he takes off on the property because they're still in Scotland, and he's gone for like 14 hours. How can I forget how old he was. He had to be like 12 or 13, maybe, I think. Maybe that's too old. I'm not sure. I don't remember. Um, how could you be wandering around some uh uh in a state for 14 hours? Like, I don't know. That's literally half a day. Wait, and that's not half a day. What am I talking about? That's 28 hours. And I wrote, yeah, I would do that too if I lost my mom at that age, which is true. Then they have a Muslim funeral for Dodi that's held by his father. Muhammad tries to return Diana's things from Dodi's apartment, but the royal family either returned or ignored all the items. Why? Why would they do that? Don't you think that her sons maybe wanted to have those items? To have something to remember their mother by? I thought that was ruthless. And the more I watch this season, the more I understand why Harry left. William, I think, is too brainwashed by the whole royalty thing to ever leave, but I always felt, even before watching this show, that Harry seemed to be a little bit more closer with his mother than William. And he basically did what his mom did. She left. So I think Prince Harry is more like um, Diana than William is, in my personal opinion. The news outlets were ignoring Dodi's death and hardly mentioning it, which, again, I think that goes back to racism and the fact that, he wasn't white even though he came from a very rich family. I thought that was interesting. And then Charles has a scene with Anne, his sister, who I love Anne, and I really hate that the show didn't depict because Princess Anne, um, I think she was in a car that was run by the royal family, and like some like crazy guy got in and like I don't know if they held them at gunpoint, but they attacked them in some way, and everyone was fine and they got him out, but a big event happened during that time. I forget how old she was. She was like, I think she was in her 20s. I could be wrong about that, but I wish they put that in the show, but they didn't. But yeah, so he has a scene with Princess Anne, and Charles says to her, um, regarding their mother Elizabeth, that she was unable to mother the nation in precisely the same way she was unable to mother us. That's some real tea. If he's basically saying that, she does a sucky job at mothering the nation because it's basically the same way she mothered us, that's a pretty cruel thing to say about your mother. But at the same time, I kind of believe him, per the show's perception. Not in real life, obviously, but I thought that was interesting. And then they start to show that the queen's silence starts to become noted in the press. The Queen finally gives a speech. In my opinion, I feel like she was really pressured into doing the speech because she was getting such bad publicity for staying silent. Um, and this was the scene that got me because during the scene while she's giving the speech, they cut to a shot of Harry looking at the present that Diana bought for him in Paris, and it said, it said something like, dear Harry, happy birthday, love, Mom, and that made me tear up. I don't know why. I guess because it would be the last thing he would ever get from his mother. And then you also see him writing a note that he put in her coffin, which was also hard to watch. Especially the scene of her funeral procession was cut by stuff they shot for the show, and they also cut to real life footage of like her actual funeral procession in real life. They kind of like went back and forth showing, all the people and stuff, which I thought that was a nice artistic move to incorporate, what really happened and how the way the show was depicting it at the same time. I thought that was really good. And then while Prince William and Harry are walking in the funeral procession, he asks his grandfather why all these people are crying for someone they didn't know. And he says to William, they're not crying for her, they're crying for you. Because obviously, they lost their mother. And I think they obviously were crying for her too, but he makes a distinct point to tell him that, they're crying for you too. And I thought it was interesting that during that scene, he kept telling the boys to either look straight ahead or look at the ground and not react to the crowd because, the crowd was like um, yelling things at them. Not bad things, but I'm trying to think what they said. They were like, like, I'm so sorry, like, God bless you, like, things like that. Which is hard when you're following your mother's casket. And the last scene is the Queen at her bedside praying. Now, I looked into this scene because at first I didn't know how to interpret it, but after reading some comments, I think it's supposed to signify that the words the Queen spoke during her speech she didn't particularly mean or want to say. And she was kind of reflecting on that, yeah, I said these things, to show that I'm mother of the nation, but I don't necessarily believe them myself. Like, I don't feel that way about Diana. And yes, that's a cruel thing to do now since Queen Elizabeth has passed, but it was a bold move for Peter Morgan to put that in as the last scene of part one, especially since people are taking it that way. But honestly, after watching the past couple seasons, I I think it's fair. I think it's fair for people to think that she didn't feel that way about her. I don't even know if like she kind of liked her at first. It was hard to read the scenes between her and Olivia Colman, to be honest with you. Obviously, like when the divorce and the stuff with Camilla started happening, that caused like World War III. So, um, what are you gonna do? So yeah, that is my summary and review of The Crown Season 6, Part 1. I hope you enjoyed it. Um, if you got, leave a comment down below um, telling me what was your favorite scene or scenes in these 4 episodes. I'm kind of curious what people gravitated towards. So tell me that. Do all the YouTube things. Like, comment, subscribe. It'll really help me out. I do this as a side gig just um, because I enjoy like talking about these things. I do a full-time job in hedge funds and stuff like that, but I also, when I'm not working, I enjoy television and music immensely. So I like to talk about these things with you guys, and I understand this video is an hour and 13 minutes already. I'll try to cut some stuff down where I'm like not talking or like reading, because I'm still teaching myself iMovie. But yeah, thanks for watching, and as I mentioned, I have my second channel, uh, the men's Bougie Bible to all things luxury, which I also said, if women want to check that out, I have my old videos where I have a Givenchy bag reveal, I have a Birkin bag reveal, unboxing, um, jewelry, stuff like that, stuff I bought, Moschino. So yeah, feel free to check it out. And I feel like my next video is going to be about Taylor and Travis Kelce, because I feel like something's going to happen between them soon. A good thing. And I'm going to talk about it, I think, because I love her, and there are so many reports on um, uh, their relationship. I was going to do a video about Colleen Ballinger returning to YouTube. She returned yesterday because I totally forgot that I had post notifications still turned on for her, and I was literally, I think I was coming home, and I had my phone open, and I saw a notification pop down that Colleen posted a video entitled, like, "What I Did This For" or some shit. Um, I still have so many mixed feelings about that situation. It's really hard. Trust me, what she did was terrible. And if it is true that she sent explicit pictures of Trisha Paytas to minors, that is a crime, and that should be pursued. Um, but I've been a fan of her for so long. Not of Miranda Sings. I've never been a fan of Miranda Sings, but I've been a fan of her and her vlogs, especially during 2020, because I took a break from work and it was kind of nice to watch her vlogs at night. Um, so I, you know, started to really like her, and then all this shit hit the fan, and what do you do? Because I know the right thing to do is not support it, because she gave that god awful apology, which she technically apologized yesterday in the video, but I think she needed to say a lot more than that. Her apology was like 3 minutes. It needed to be a lot longer of that, and she didn't even mention anyone. So maybe I'm talking about it now, so maybe I will make a video about it, expressing my opinion. Um, but yeah, I was getting way too consumed by it, because like Adam McIntyre was posting a video every day, and Adam, I respect you. I'm very sorry for what you went through, but I think you need to take some time off and do some really good therapy, because just gushing all this shit on YouTube is not going to heal you. Trust me, I've been in therapy for a long time. It doesn't work that way. I wish you the best, but I can't like watch those videos anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, that's all for tonight. It's almost 1 a.m. and tomorrow's Monday. But I'm happy I was able to get this video out. Alright, so everyone have a great time, and I will definitely be doing a review of season 6, part 2 of The Crown, which comes out in the middle of December. So get ready for that. And feel free to ask me if you have questions about the episodes. Leave a comment. I like interacting with people. So, and my emails in the description, and also a link to my other channel if you want to check that out. Alright, guys. So, peace and have a good night.